All right, so today we're diving deep into some seriously chilling territory.
Oh, yeah.
The Wendigo,
Definitely chilling.
a creature straight out of Algonquian folklore. And let me tell you, we've been digging through articles all about its origins, cultural significance, even how it's popped up in modern stuff like video games and movies.
It's everywhere.
It's going to be a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, what I find interesting is how the Wendigo, it's not just some scary campfire story.
Right.
You know, it's like deeply woven into the beliefs of so many Native American tribes.
Yeah.
Especially the ones who lived in those harsh, cold environments like Canada and the Great Lakes region.
Oh, absolutely. So let's get down to the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is a Wendigo?
Okay, so picture this. A towering figure, gaunt, emaciated with this insatiable craving for human flesh.
Oh, okay.
Glowing eyes, razor-sharp teeth and claws, a skeletal appearance.
Yeah.
It's like the embodiment of winter, cold, famine, all those dangers lurking out there in the wilderness.
Yeah, definitely paints a pretty creepy picture. Yeah.
Actually, one of the sources we found, someone described the Wendigo
Yeah.
as being so emaciated that its skin, like, clings to its bones.
Oh, wow.
And just this, like, horrible smell of decay and death surrounding it.
Oh, that's vivid.
Yeah.
And here's another chilling detail.
Okay.
The Wendigo is said to grow larger
Okay.
with every human it consumes.
Oh, wow.
But get this, its hunger is never satisfied.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It is.
Like a representation of pure unending hunger.
Right.
Makes you wonder where these stories even came from.
Well, the Wendigo, it's deeply rooted in the folklore of several Algonquian tribes,
Okay.
including the Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Cree, Naskapi, and Innu peoples.
Okay.
And for them, the Wendigo often acts as this cautionary figure in their stories.
Oh, interesting.
You know, warning against greed, selfishness, breaking those important cultural taboos.
So there's like a moral lesson
Exactly.
embedded in these monster tales.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. There are all these stories about lost hunters driven to cannibalism during brutal winters, right?
Right.
And ultimately they transform into the monstrous Wendigo.
Oh, wow.
These stories, they would have served as powerful reminders of what happens when you give in to those darkest impulses,
Yeah.
especially when facing hardship.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating how the Wendigo myth reflects the real challenges these tribes face.
Absolutely.
Scarce resources, the constant threat of starvation. Speaking of dark impulses, one of the things that really struck me was this whole concept of Wendigo psychosis.
Oh yeah, that's where things get a little blurry between myth and reality.
Yeah.
You see, Wendigo psychosis is what's called a culture-bound syndrome,
Okay.
meaning it's a condition closely tied to a specific culture.
Okay.
In this case, individuals, they develop this intense craving for human flesh
Oh, wow.
and believe they're turning into a Wendigo.
So we're not talking about mythical transformations,
I'm fixing it.
but an actual psychological phenomenon.
Yeah, some researchers actually suggest
Yeah.
that this was linked to real-life situations like famine,
Yeah.
desperation during harsh winters.
Right. So wouldn't survival cannibalism be a natural response in those kinds of extreme situations?
You would think so.
So how does the Wendigo myth, how does it differentiate between that natural survival instinct and the monstrous hunger it represents?
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
The line is definitely complex.
Yeah.
Historical accounts, they describe individuals afflicted by Wendigo psychosis
Yeah.
experiencing this overwhelming, like, animalistic hunger
Wow.
for human flesh, sometimes even attacking their own families.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot of debate going on
Yeah.
about whether Wendigo psychosis was a genuine mental illness
Okay.
or a cultural interpretation of some pretty extreme behavior.
Right. So it's like the myth adds another layer of complexity to what could be a very primal, just instinctual response to desperation.
Absolutely.
We're seeing how the Wendigo isn't just this monster.
Right.
It's intertwined with these real-world experiences and different interpretations of human behavior.
For sure.
And there's also the case of Swift Runner, right?
Oh, yes.
The Cree trapper who killed and ate his family during a famine.
Yeah, his case is particularly interesting.
Yeah.
Because he actually had access to food supplies.
Oh, wow.
So it suggests there might have been something more at play
Yeah.
than just survival instinct.
Right.
Although, of course, it's impossible to know for sure.
It's such a tragic story, but it really makes you think about the complexities of human behavior.
Definitely.
especially under that kind of extreme pressure.
Yeah, it really does.
The Wendigo really forces us to confront those dark corners of human nature, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And this brings us to another fascinating aspect of the Wendigo.
Okay.
Its role as a powerful metaphor.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how this creature, with its insatiable hunger
Yeah.
and its destructive nature, could represent something much bigger.
Right. Think about it.
Okay.
The Wendigo consumes everything in its path.
Yeah.
It's not hard to see how this could symbolize greed, excess,
Yeah.
even the destruction of natural resources,
Yeah.
which are all very real concerns even today.
Absolutely. Yeah, that connection is pretty striking.
Yeah.
It's like the Wendigo embodies the potential consequences of just unchecked consumption.
Right.
And this insatiable hunger for more.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how our society often encourages that constant consumption,
That's a great point.
It's like we're all in danger of becoming a little bit like the Wendigo ourselves.
It's true. And, some Native American scholars,
Yeah.
they take the metaphor even further.
Okay.
They interpret the Wendigo as a representation of the devastating impacts of colonialism,
Oh, wow.
the disruption of traditional ways of life,
Okay.
the forced assimilation of indigenous peoples.
I see. But isn't there a risk of simplifying these complex historical events
Sure.
by attributing them to a mythical figure? I mean, how do we separate the Wendigo's symbolism from the real-world actions of individuals and systems?
It's a valid point.
Yeah.
It's not about placing blame solely on this mythical entity,
Right.
but rather using the Wendigo as a lens
Okay.
to understand these destructive patterns that have played out throughout history
Okay?
and continue to this day.
Right.
The Wendigo becomes a symbol of the damage caused by unchecked greed
Yeah.
and the violation of those cultural boundaries.
It adds a whole other layer of meaning to this creature.
It does.
So we've got this terrifying monster from folklore,
Right.
a possible psychological phenomenon connected to it, and now this powerful metaphor for understanding these darker aspects of humanity.
Absolutely.
And on that note,
Yeah.
we can't forget how the Wendigo has made its way into popular culture.
Oh, absolutely. The Wendigo has definitely captured the imaginations of storytellers for decades now.
Yeah, it seems like it's taken on a life of its own,
For sure.
outside of its traditional context.
It has. And to really understand how it's evolved, we need to go back to the early 20th century
Okay.
with Algernon Blackwood's novella, The Wendigo.
Okay.
This story introduced the creature to a much wider audience.
Right.
And
Yeah.
really set the stage for its appearances in modern horror.
And since then, I mean, we've seen the Wendigo pop up everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
From Stephen King's Pet Sematary
Right.
to recent movies like Antlers,
Yes.
video games like Until Dawn.
All over.
It's interesting how these modern interpretations often take some creative liberties
For sure.
with the creature's appearance and behavior.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how the Wendigo has been adapted to explore different themes and ideas.
Okay.
For example, in Pet Sematary, the Wendigo is this grotesque, otherworldly being
Right.
connected to themes of death and resurrection.
Yeah.
In Until Dawn, Wendigos are depicted as these fast, sound-sensitive hunters.
Okay.
So it creates a more action-oriented horror experience.
All right.
And then Antlers presents a unique take, portraying the Wendigo as this deer-like creature linked to environmental destruction.
Right. And let's not forget its appearance in Marvel Comics,
Oh, yeah, of course.
where the Wendigo is portrayed as a curse-afflicting cannibal.
Right. It's amazing how these modern interpretations, while diverse,
Yeah.
still retain that core element of insatiable hunger and the blurring of boundaries between human and monster.
It's almost like the Wendigo has become this universal symbol of our deepest fears.
In a way.
But with each adaptation, it takes on new layers of meaning.
Precisely. It's a testament to the Wendigo's enduring power
Yeah.
and adaptability as a storytelling device.
Yeah.
But even as it's been reimagined in popular culture,
Right.
the Wendigo continues to hold a significant place within indigenous storytelling as well.
Oh, for sure.
For example, it appears in contemporary works like Linda K. Hogan's novel Solar Storms
Okay.
and Nathan Egan Newton Adler's novel Wrist.
It's incredible how the Wendigo remains relevant
I know, right?
in both mainstream and indigenous narratives. Yes.
Like it's this bridge between traditional folklore
Yeah.
and modern storytelling.
Absolutely. It shows us that the Wendigo is not just a creature of the past. It's a living, evolving symbol
Yeah.
with a lot to say about our relationship with the world and ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And it's not just about individual actions either.
Okay.
The Wendigo's insatiable hunger,
Right.
it can also be seen as a reflection of larger systems and structures.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Corporations that prioritize profit over people,
Right.
over the well-being of the environment,
Yeah.
systems that just perpetuate inequality and exploitation.
Right.
Aren't those kind of echoes of the Wendigo's relentless pursuit of more?
Yeah.
No matter the cost.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It's like the Wendigo myth can be applied to so many different levels,
I think so.
from personal choices to the way entire societies operate.
It really makes you think about the potential for those destructive forces within ourselves,
Yeah.
but also in the systems that we create.
For sure, it's a reminder that we need to be mindful
Right.
of the consequences of our actions
Yeah.
on all levels.
Yeah.
We can't just focus on individual responsibility without addressing the larger systems
Right.
that contribute to these destructive patterns.
So after exploring all these different facets of the Wendigo,
Yeah.
what do you think are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think one of the most important takeaways is that idea of balance.
Oh.
The Wendigo represents what happens when that balance is disrupted, when greed and consumption take over.
Right.
It's a reminder to examine our own actions,
Yeah.
our relationships with each other,
Oh.
our impact on the world around us.
Yeah.
Are we acting in a way that promotes harmony and sustainability, or are we feeding the Wendigo within?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Wendigo is this mirror reflecting our own potential for self-destruction.
Absolutely.
It's a challenge to confront those shadows within ourselves
Yeah.
and within the systems that we are a part of.
It is. And, it's not about feeling guilty or ashamed,
Right.
but rather becoming more aware
Okay.
and making those conscious choices
Yeah.
that align with our values.
Right.
The Wendigo myth, it encourages us to remember our interconnectedness,
Okay.
to recognize that our actions have consequences,
Yeah.
not just for ourselves,
Yeah.
but for that entire web of life.
Yeah.
And, this brings us back to the Wendigo's origins
Okay.
and those harsh realities faced by those Native American tribes.
Right.
Remember, the myth served as a warning
Yeah.
against the dangers of succumbing to those baser instincts,
Right.
especially in times of scarcity and hardship.
It highlights how important it is to maintain our humanity,
Absolutely.
even when faced with those extreme circumstances.
Exactly. It's a reminder that even when things are tough, we have a choice. We can choose to cooperate,
Right.
to share, to act with compassion and respect for others,
Yeah.
or we can choose the path of the Wendigo,
Right.
the path of isolation, greed,
Yeah.
and ultimately self-destruction.
It's a stark choice,
It is
but a necessary one to consider.
definitely
The Wendigo isn't just about this scary monster lurking in the woods.
right.
It's about the choices we make every single day and the kind of world we want to create.
It is, and that's what makes the Wendigo such a compelling and enduring figure.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask those uncomfortable questions about ourselves and our place in the world.
Right.
It's a reminder that the choices we make have consequences,
Yeah.
not just for ourselves,
Right.
but for future generations.
Well, I have to admit, this deep dive has been fascinating
It has.
and thought-provoking.
It has.
We've explored so much.
We have.
The origins of the Wendigo,
Yeah.
the chilling phenomenon of Wendigo psychosis, the creature's evolution into this powerful symbol of greed and destruction,
Right.
and its impact on modern storytelling.
Absolutely. And we've seen how the Wendigo can serve as this powerful metaphor
Yeah.
for understanding the challenges we face in the modern world,
Right.
encouraging us to confront our own potential for greed and destructiveness,
Yeah.
and to consider the consequences of our actions
Yeah.
on the environment and future generations.
It's like the Wendigo is this multifaceted lens
It is.
through which we can examine ourselves and the world around us.
Absolutely.
So as we start to wrap up this exploration,
Okay.
what final thought would you leave our listener with? What's something they can ponder
Okay.
as they continue to think about the Wendigo?
I think it's worth considering this.
Okay.
We often think of the Wendigo as this external monster,
Right.
this creature lurking in the shadows.
Yeah.
But what if the true horror of the Wendigo
Okay.
lies not in the wilderness,
Okay.
but within ourselves?
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah.
The idea that the Wendigo isn't just out there, it's
Well,
in here.
Exactly. The Wendigo represents those dark impulses we all have.
Yeah.
The capacity for greed, selfishness, disregard for others.
Right.
The real challenge, the real horror
Yeah.
is recognizing those impulses within ourselves.
Okay.
And making that conscious choice to resist them.
So the next time you encounter the Wendigo, whether it's in a chilling story, a terrifying movie, or even just a fleeting thought,
Right.
remember this. The most terrifying monster
Okay.
might not be the one with the glowing eyes,
Yeah.
the razor-sharp claws,
Right.
but the one lurking in your own heart.
Yeah, that's a powerful thought to end on.
Yeah.
You know, if the real Wendigo is within us, could there be like Wendigos walking among us today? Not literally, of course.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, in that metaphorical sense. Are there individuals or systems out there driven by that same insatiable hunger, that same destructive energy?
It's a tough question. It's not an easy answer. The Wendigo myth is not just some spooky story from the past.
Right.
It's a warning for now and the future.
Yeah.
It's reminding us to be mindful of what we do and what it all means.
Yeah.
You know, those consequences, and to challenge systems that perpetuate that greed and inequality.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also pushes us to cultivate those good qualities
Okay.
that help us resist our own, you know, inner Wendigo.
You know, when we started this whole deep dive, I thought we were just going to be talking about a scary monster from folklore.
Right.
But wow, it's turned out to be so much more than that.
It has. We've peeled back some real layers here.
Yeah, we really have.
The Wendigo, this figure, it can really make you think. It gives you a powerful framework for understanding not just how we behave as people,
Right.
but also these larger forces that play in our world.
Absolutely.
It pushes us to look beyond the surface.
Yeah.
Examine those root causes, you know, of suffering and destruction within us and out in the world.
This has given me a lot to think about.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
The Wendigo, this creature of myth and legend,
Right.
turns out to be surprisingly relevant to everything going on today.
It is. And it reminds us that the monsters we fear most might not be the ones hiding in the shadows,
Right.
but the ones we create ourselves through our choices and what we do, the challenge and the hope, you know? It lies in recognizing those monsters and choosing a different path.
Well said. So until our next deep dive, stay curious, stay informed, and remember,
Yeah.
the Wendigo is always watching.